All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to go live here as we are now on Sportswire Radio and sportnarium.com/player. And we're about to talk all things related here to ROEW. And if you've been following them on YouTube at ROEW Backyard Wrestling, they literally just a few short hours ago put on their show Weekend Warfare. And our guest tonight was a huge part of it. He started the show, and in a way, he kind of ended the show. And he's had quite a resume here when it comes to the scene in Michigan. He was a former ROEW champion of the world, and he's certainly well on his way of making Jason Storm, the current champion's life, a miserable hell. He may need no further introduction, but because it's his first time on Sportswire Radio, and it might be one of the first times and only times he ever gets this kind of introduction, we're giving it to him anyway. So without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one, the Rebel Sports Show, wrestling star, the former REW heavyweight champion of the world. He is the good guy, CJ Black.
Damn right. Thank you for understanding.
Oh, I'm going to try. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to certainly do the best I can here because you are literally coming off the ring just a few short hours ago. It's almost like an Elimination Chamber press conference, WrestleMania press conference, Royal Rumble press conference, because literally I watched you on YouTube at ROEW Backyard Wrestling literally about 50 or so minutes ago, and you were in the ring. You kicked things off against your brother C Money. This was a match a lot of people, I think, were waiting to see. It was about 8 years in the making, so set the tables for those who are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio and how you got the job done and continue to be the good guy CJ Black over your brother C Money.
So first of all, though, how'd you enjoy the show? You liked it?
I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I watch a lot of wrestling these days. Now, a lot of wrestlers give me their content because we cover a lot of wrestlers. And, I'm not going to BS you. I've probably interviewed about 300 or 350 wrestlers in my career. I can honestly say in watching your show, it had a feel to me like a professional wrestling show. The editing job, whoever did it, by the way, phenomenal job. The build up to the show, phenomenal job. The matches themselves, I mean, there was only 3 of them, but you know what? I think 3 was actually just right because the way the show flowed, fantastic. Like I said, sometimes I watch shows and I'm like, I'm struggling to get there. But this show, in fact, I watched a show yesterday for a British wrestling company that I shall name nameless that I watched, and I have to say I was very upset with the outcome of the main event there. Tonight, wasn't upset about anything, my friend.
Good. So, good God, man. Yeah, I've been excited, though, to, finally get back in the ring with my brother, because back in the day, ROEW was literally just me and him. We couldn't find anybody else. And at this point, it's like, now we got other people, but now we have a ring. We got to make it happen,
Absolutely. Listen, I think the ring was what you guys, going back to your original question on, asking me about the company and how we kind of really got in touch. And what really impressed me most is you guys do have a pro ring feel to it. Sometimes you watch even pro wrestling shows and the ring itself is kind of an issue, or the setup, it has a feel, it's gimmicky. But with you guys, I really don't get that feel. So I'm glad to see the company is growing, and I think it's because, which is something you were talking with me off the air, I actually think is going to be your advantage that you have a ring that to me is as good as any ring is out there I've seen.
Oh, yeah, it's brand new. Let me start at the beginning for you, all right? Let me start at the beginning.
All right.
REW ended like 2015. You saw that promo I did. That was all a shoot. And
that was like the old days. Yeah, we was like some of the footage we saw was like from decades ago, it felt like.
Like, I loved wrestling. That's all I wanted to do. And then my brother, the only person I did wrestle, wanted to quit. So REW stopped. And then, when was it? Early last year, I made some little, like a promo because I was going to have like one last match. I wanted to, go out with a bang. And it was supposed to be against somebody from Alabama that was like kind of collabing with us back in the day. And he let me down. Did you want to say something?
No, no, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm just saying, sure.
He let me down, and then I met Jason Storm. Not a good guy like me. But
Yeah,
anyways,
I'm gonna get to him. I'm gonna get to him.
okay. So I don't know who worked who into doing what, but we were like, let's start it back up. Let's have one match, see how it goes. And we built that little half-ass ring just to, be able to take bumps. And then we posted it. We had people like they were, praising us. They were like, "Damn, this is actually good." We had people like trying to link up with us and shit. So it felt good. And then from there, we were like, "Is this all we're doing? Or are we gonna keep going?" We kept going. We got a ring. Like it's getting exciting. We got a lot of big things coming up too.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I mean, watching the shows, I mean, phenomenal just in kind of the build up for these shows. And I always feel like sometimes when you have a wrestling show, the build up sometimes is the most fun. And even watching the show tonight, and I encourage everybody to do so on YouTube at ROEW
Please do.
Backyard Wrestling. Please go out there. And a lot of people I know have already done that already. And I think what really sometimes is the best part of a wrestling show is the build up. It's almost you guys in a way, I don't want to say it's quite like a UFC build up, but in terms of just what you guys did, that's what made me so excited into the company. Your promo videos, obviously seeing what Storm had to say, your build up and your career. And I mean, has this then gone on to more than you could ever have expected, even in your first run of your career? Because obviously you had a run years ago, and now you're in the second act of your career. So how do you feel now in terms of your career?
I mean, definitely, it's way bigger now, and we have less subscribers than our old channel, but also our old channel is like 10 years old. We just restarted November last year, so it's still fresh, honestly. But yeah, things are going like nothing but up. Like it's crazy. People are loving us. I think what also helps is like our in-ring storytelling, that we're
Phenomenal.
doing the moves the correct way, not just out there like, oh, this is a cool move, let's do it, back and forth. We're selling, we're using ring psychology, we're doing things the way the pros would want it done. Because I know pros hate backyard wrestling, so I'm trying to make it
Well,
to where if one happens to stumble upon us, they'll be like, wow, they're actually not that bad. They're doing
Well,
it the
you
right
know
way.
what? I'm glad you brought that up because, and this is a full disclosure, and I have a couple comments here. I'm going to get to them. And sometimes this occurs because on Sportswire, I obviously interview some backyard talent and I do a hell of a lot of pro wrestling talent. I've had, guys come on here, and I don't want to name names, say, oh, those backyarders, they're yarders, they're this, they're that, they're daredevils, they're amateurs, they're wannabes. And I think it's unfair, personally, because I think that everybody's just trying to do the best they can. They're trying to, at least, how can I put it in a way that makes everybody happy? Trying to show appreciation for a love of a sport that we all have. We're all wrestling fans. I mean, I've been a fan of
Right, right.
wrestling for 25 years since I'm a little kid growing up in Brooklyn, and we're all wrestling fans wherever how long we've been wrestling fans for. And I really think, though, coming back to you guys, I do get that like pro wrestling feel with you guys because everything you guys do in there, you got the setup, you got, even your match was, the ring psychology and kind of just the different stuff, the submission holds and kind of the other move, even the way you won the match against your brother and kind of like the roll up with the tights. I mean, they're almost, I don't want to say it's got like an old NWA feel to it or an old, Mid South, an old school wrestling vibe, but I think what separates you guys is you guys don't come across like daredevils. You guys are coming across like almost like a wrestling show, almost like a small time wrestling show that they used to tape, like the AWA, Mid South, NWA, where they were in a studio with kind of nobody, but they were putting on real wrestling. And tell me your
Yeah.
thoughts on all that.
I mean that's the goal. That's why like I was saying, mine and Jason's first match, that's the goal I had then too. I was like, I kind of checked out the backyard wrestling scene and watching everybody, and I'm like, I mean, they're entertaining, but they're not like doing things right. I want to, be different. I want to do things right. So me and him, we trained a little bit, and I was like, you got to sell your ass off, man. You got to make people feel, because I'm sitting there, getting heat on you, and he's good. I'm not gonna lie, he's good at selling. He screams.
Oh, he sold tonight. Let me tell you something. He sold, without spoiling it, he sold a hell of a lot tonight to you, CJ.
I ain't mad at it. And then as far as my win, all that matters is I got the win. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know what? You certainly did. And I do want to say hello to some people here because they want to talk to you. First of all, let me get to a bunch of comments here. This individual, who I think is coming back to Sportswire Radio, who I think knows somebody who is a professional wrestler, wink, wink. And this individual, who I think is related to an individual who yesterday did some refereeing at a show I sort of referenced to called GT Ministries out in the UK. It's 1:25 a.m. out there. I'm surprised he's even up this late, but I appreciate this. Yeah, well, we have a lot of fans out there on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and people just they love what I do, and I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. A company that I think messaged you in the past, the IMF, and the IMF is another company that we're big fans of. They just worked with Levi McDaniel, big independent side, had a big show in their own right this past weekend here. So big things coming in Iowa, and you'll do big things. So nice nod of them. Also, we have Skulls via the WCE Wrestling Championship Entertainment in Appleton, Wisconsin. He's from California. He says, "Good evening, gentlemen." Speaking of another one of my former guests and friends, we have the proprietor of the RWA in Rochester, New York, Mr. John Jackson, says, "I watch you guys. Awesome contest between the two of you. You make an excellent bad guy. I've already subscribed to your guys' channel." So he's
I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy, first of all. It's all about perspective, my friend.
So would you say then, maybe to some in the outside world, and I see it, I'm going to get to it. So would you say then some in the outside world see things differently than you, and that's why you might get labeled a bad guy?
Hear me out. Everybody is the hero of their own story. Think about when you're complaining about your day, the person you're complaining about, that's the bad guy, not you. You can do no wrong, you know? You're the good guy. So am I, no matter what I do.
All right. Well,
My story.
Mr. Jackson would actually say you're a good guy. My apologies. So fair enough here.
Thank you for staying in the light. Thank you.
I want to give a big shout out actually to somebody else tuned in who's been on the show recently, and he's a champion in a company called DKW, Dark Cryptic Wrestling, via the IMF. He is Mr. Heel Life 24/7. He is Soldier GP. He also says he almost, I guess, wants to see you someday. CJ Black for Soldier GP, that would be big. Well, as big as it could be. So
that's the dude from IMF too, I believe,
yep,
right?
Yep. Omen Black and Soldier GP, they've been on here. They've become friends of Sportswire. They've even popped in on some different shows we've had on with Wrestling Championship Entertainment, and they wrestled part of an independent show that they put on in their company yesterday for the IMF out there in Iowa, outside of Cedar Rapids, and that's who they are.
I've watched some of their shit, and like you guys are good. It's just I'm not big on going places because I'm a family man. I don't got time for that. If people want to come to us, I can make that happen.
Okay.
But I'm not big on traveling, really.
No, I could understand. Listen, I mean, there are some people, and I appreciate your honesty, because sometimes wrestlers say, "Yeah, I want to do this. Yeah, I want to do that," but they can't do it for different reasons: logistics, work, family. And I really appreciate the fact that you were basically straight up and you're doing what you got to do. And I mean, but tell people then, and we'll come back to the match, we'll come back to Weekend Warfare. Where is the ROEW located? And just basically kind of, just some of the stuff there where people have been able to land you guys and such.
It's literally right outside Detroit. Like, people know 8 Mile from the movie. If you don't know, Detroit, Eminem. It's literally,
of course,
8 miles Detroit right there. We're 8.5 miles. We're right outside Detroit. Which I got a funny story about that when we get to it down the line, but go ahead.
All right, I will definitely do it because I'm actually curious, because I've seen the movie 8 Mile many times, and I'm actually a big movie guy. It's probably out there somewhere on YouTube. I'm actually in 2 short films, and I've done a few other stuff, but that's not about me tonight. It's about you. I guess Soldier says he's willing to travel. I guess so. Maybe if he's willing to travel, maybe we can maybe arrange things here. So maybe that's a possibility. But we'll come back to that for sure. But Weekend Warfare here, and a win here against your brother, and then we see at the end of the show somebody
well deserved.
Yes, no, you definitely put on a great match. I'll say that here. You were down and out a number of different times throughout the match, but you kind of found a way, and I think you kind of got the referee. You kind of put the referee in the middle of the match, and your brother kind of bought that there. I mean, so going forward then between you and your brother, this was a score that you've wanted to settle for a long time. We saw kind of the package video for this, and Where do you think things go then between you and your brother now after you've won here the Tonight Show?
Depends on if he wants to be a little bitch or not. You know what I'm saying? If he wants to show up and get whooped again, by all means.
Okay, all right. So
Good
we'll
guy's
kind
ready
of.
to go.
Well, it was funny because we were kind of like seeing, and I'll get to it toward the end of the show. You're kind of waiting for somebody to come out and save the champion, and C Money's name came up, and it was like it didn't happen. No, listen, it didn't happen here. But I do have a comment here from somebody that I think we just referred to at the top of the show, and he says a lot of what I'm hearing is that backyarders are attempting to push their way into a business that they perhaps aren't skilled enough to be a part of. However, if what I'm hearing from CJ is true, there shouldn't be a question for a bad reputation purely on him being a backyarder. If the wrestling is legitimate, then respect is to be had. Sky is the limit. Where you go from here? So what do you have to say to that?
I mean, I appreciate it. It's just like I'm just talking the way other people think. Like most pros, I'm not going to say all pros, but like as soon as they get trained, they kind of have to look down on backyarders because they're usually unsafe, which we're trying to be different. We're watching like legit, like Tyson Dukes, Damian Slater, stuff like that to like teach us the right way, so it's safe. So that's all I mean. It's like we want to do things the right way, be safe. To make it look good, make it look different than
Well,
regular backyard wrestling.
you guys, I want to say, really do that, and that's kind of why I really enjoy the product about what you're putting on, because I do feel that it's a product that I think respects maybe the tradition of wrestling in a number of different ways. And again, and not to go into too much in the weeds, because I really want to talk about the show and kind of the future of the company here. I want to talk about your champion. I want to talk about Jack Delta, somebody I know. I got to talk about them because we're obviously here to promote the company, but you can say whatever you want on them. But not to get too much into the weeds of this, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I do feel at the end of the day that wrestlers, certain pro wrestlers, do come across as holier than thou, when at the end of the day, accidents happen everywhere. Now, there's no question that things happen. Look at what happened to Kyle Kennedy. I mean, he wrestled against, for all intensive purposes, a trainee in Donnie franchise, and we saw what happened there. But he's labeled a pro wrestler, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds. But anywhere you go, look, I could cross the street and I could get hit by a car. I'm a newspaper carrier overnight. I mean, I put my life on the line. I think just as much as anybody else, because I'm out at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I've done many other things that I would say are just as difficult. Now, I respect what everybody's doing. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I do feel what you guys are doing, I think, is the right thing. As for anybody else, what they want to do, they can interpret it whatever the way they want. But let's obviously do talk about your champion, because your champion, Jason Storm, and you made sure, though, I'm not even sure how he got up
Just
after
don't
the
make me say
beating.
his name again, please. Good God.
All right, so how about Mr. Storm?
Not good enough. You can call him left-handed freak, ginger, whatever, but just don't say his name.
Okay, so how about your champion? So you're a champion, right? So for the moment,
Whatever. Oh, that hurts a little, but go ahead.
but it's not. I didn't mention his name though.
He
I didn't
stole my
mention.
property, but that's fine.
Okay, so he's still, so the property that you used to have, right? He's basically sitting on the property that you used to have, right? And
Babysitting it, yeah, for now.
you you did a number on him along with Mr. Jack Delta, and I was very surprised to see the champion able to get up, and certainly in a way you had your own issues to get up from, but I mean, what does happen now with your champion? You certainly wanted him beaten. You wanted that title taken off him. Mr. Delta got himself disqualified. You did put a hurting on the champion. So where do things go with our champion here?
We'll see. Unfortunately, I can't challenge for the title right now
Yep.
while he's so. I got Plan A didn't work out so well for me for Captain Law to win the belt, but Plan B should have been a little more.
You weren't
It
happy
went
with the
better than
plan.
it did.
Yeah, you weren't happy with the plan. You came out, you verbally said you weren't that happy, but you kind of accepted it and then kind of used your crutch as still an object to beat up on the champion. You
Yeah,
did.
I mean, I saw a moment and I took it. I'm not, I'm not mad at myself about it, but yeah, one way or another, I'm getting that belt off of him so I can get it back. That's my property. So
Oh, now did you feel that the beating, was it sufficient enough? Because clearly the commentator, whoever it was, wink, wink, certainly certainly was basically screaming to please stop. And even if you watch it on ROEW Backyard Wrestling on YouTube, you actually see that you guys cut away for like maybe 20 seconds or so from what you guys were about to do to the champion. So do you feel that the beating was too much? Did it go over the line?
No, God, no. I should have went further, honestly, but
Well, what would
YouTube and
you
their
have
guidelines.
what would you have wanted to do that would have went further? You can't
Make him
kill him.
retire so he just hands me my belt. That's my property. He does not deserve it. It's my story. I'm the hero. I walk away with the belt, not him.
All right, but you expect him to be ready for action, though. I mean, there's almost you almost have to imagine he's going to want to get even on you. And we even heard at the end of the show that it was said that the champion's gonna find his way to get back on you guys.
If he knows what's good for him, he will stay away from us. However, the smart thing to do would be to just hand over the title, keep your dignity, and walk away. Don't get hurt again.
Okay, but why would the champion, in your opinion, do that? Considering, like any champion, he has to be a fighting champion. No.
Because I see him differently than everybody else. I know he's just a gutless coward. That's all.
Now, from your vantage point, for those that are listening and watching this and are hearing you for the first time, why do you say that the champion is a gutless coward?
A couple of reasons. One, stole my property from me. Two,
Okay.
he's a left-handed freak. Can't stand it. Three, he wears glasses. You can't trust people to wear glasses. What are they hiding behind those? What have they seen?
Well, that's the line in Batman. What did Jack Nicholson's Joker character say? Would you ever hit a man with glasses? That's kind of the line there almost that comes to mind. So I
I
guess
like
you
being
kind of
that.
maybe so. I mean, but you didn't. So you didn't think though that this was too far. You didn't think it was over the line.
God, no.
Okay.
Do people feel that way?
Well, I mean,
All I did
according
was repeatedly punch him in the head until I felt better. I mean, what's wrong with that?
but you also taped his hands up. I mean, you and Mr. Delta started it, but his hands were taped. He visibly couldn't have defended himself. I mean, you literally could have. Who knows what you could have did? I mean, you could
Did
have.
he ask us to stop? No.
Well, he was beaten.
Kind of on him at that point, right?
But considering the state he was in, did he even have the ability to say something?
He could have blinked at me, could have done some sign language with his hands. I don't know. But he didn't. He just lay there like this. Not my problem.
From the beating that both you guys gave him. I mean, I guess that's the one way about it.
One
And
man's opinion. I don't know.
all right,
I'm
well,
no
and
doctor. He must be a doctor. I'm not a doctor.
now you said something also about some people are born to be stars and others are living in the world that you and Mr. Delta are in. And talk about why you said that as the show went off the air.
Because Jason Storm is not a star. I'm a star. Jack Delta's a star. Jason Storm, like I said, just a freak. Somebody I let live in my world. That's all he
So,
is.
so he's
He's
on
an
borrowed
extra.
time then. He's on borrowed time, you're saying.
He definitely is.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll have to see. I'll come back to that in a second. Danny would like to
You're
say,
not a Jason Storm fan, are you?
well, I can't say I'm a fan of his. I mean, you're the good guy, CJ Black. But what I will say is that we're probably eventually going to hear from him on Sportswire because we are obviously working with you guys now, and we want to give everybody a shot. So I'm going to give him a crack, and I'm going to give Mr. Delta a crack. So that way we give everybody an opinion. 'Cause what I mostly try to do on Sportswire, just so you're familiar, I do have my favorites, but I try to at least be as unbiased as I can because we just have so many people come on at this point. Like I said, I have had on maybe 300 or 350 wrestlers, and I'm not exaggerating. So I have to at least give everybody that shot. I'm not quite Ariel Hawani, but I certainly, at least try to present in a way that people want to keep coming on here. And Danny wants to add further an unfortunate byproduct of the state of British wrestling at the minute. I think he's talking about the Kyle Kennedy injury, and Kyle Kennedy will be on with us Thursday night about 9 o'clock British Standard Time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern Time, to talk about that. Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. Listen, that's why I'm saying, listen, he's going about it, I think, the right way because there are pro wrestlers who are getting far more injured than what these guys are doing. So I mean, listen, there are the shows that are being put out there that they've had guys on with what 3, 4 matches, and they're the ones with severe injuries. So we should move away from that subject for now. But obviously, now let's talk about Jack Delta for a second, because Jack Delta I
Oh,
reference as somebody that's
no
going to
problem.
become. Yes, I want to talk about Jack Delta, absolutely. So Jack Delta is a name when you speak of, let's say, backyard wrestlers or even independent wrestlers in general. They know the name Jack Delta. Jack Delta is a big deal. It's a big deal for this company to have him. It's a big deal for you, I have to imagine, to be aligned with him. So, I mean, talk about basically Jack Delta, the relationship that you have with him, maybe on the air and off the air of ROEW, and really how helpful he's been to the company.
Okay, well, this was part of the story I was going to tell earlier.
Thank you.
When me and Jason released that first match and people started commenting, he was one of them. And I didn't really pay attention to the backyard scene at all at that time. And I clicked on his name and I'm watching him, and he's like, he looks like he's had some training. He knows a thing or two about what he's doing. So I'm like, damn, he wants to work with us. That'd be sweet. So I hit him up, and turns out the dude lives 5 minutes away from me out of the whole United States of America, 5 minutes away. I'm like, no way. So that was, that worked out well. And then, in the ring, we were supposed to have a little match a couple months ago, and then he went his own way. I was a little upset, but can't stay mad at a true friend. He came back right when I needed him for Plan B, so he made it up to me.
Oh, he
So
definitely
far.
did. I mean, watching what he did in the main event here, and again, if you haven't got a chance to see it, please go to ROEW Backyard Wrestling on YouTube. Also, Instagram. Please follow the ROEW for all the great things that the company is putting on here. And I mean,
I'd
certainly,
appreciate it.
yes, and we would appreciate that as well, because we support you guys, and we want to continue to make sure that all of our companies, I don't care what they do, are supported, because friends of Sportswire are always going to be friends with us here. So when it comes to what Delta did then, so overall, were you happy with his performance tonight?
I mean, he put a hurting on him. He didn't do what I had planned, which is get my property back for me. But he did leave an open for me to get in there and boom, right in the face of Jason Storm. So I forgive him.
If I were to argue and say maybe this was the best outcome for you, because while he didn't take the title away from the champion, he left him in a position where, I mean, come next month, who really knows what kind of state the champion's in? So maybe in a way, this is the best outcome for you.
I don't expect him to be back for a while. I hope he's concussed. Hope he's taking time off work chilling. Can't stand him. Glasses.
Well,
Freak.
well. Will we have a medical report on the champion? I know that there was some talk. Obviously, we saw the referee try to help him, and they said helps on the way, helps on the way. But the champion did his best Stone Cold Steve Austin impersonation from WrestleMania 13, and didn't want any medical attention. So, do you think we'll have a medical update on the status of the champion, or you think he's
Uh,
just too dumb to have seek that medical help?
I mean, I'm not sure what happened after that because we left and didn't really give a shit, to be honest with you. But I mean, if that's something he wants to provide, if he comes back, go for it. But I don't know. He might be too stupid to go to the doctor. I don't know.
All right, well, we'll have to see here. And coming back over to Jack Delta. Now, Jack Delta is a guy that has wrestled in, I don't know, 7 different states, if I'm not mistaken. He's wrestled in countless companies. And do you feel that, let's leave aside the on the camera stuff for a second before we come back to the next month's show and promote the company a little more here on Sports by Radio, but do you feel that in certain ways that he's given the company credibility? Because when you hear the name Jack Delta, for example, I had on a guy, Anthony Steele, on Friday, and Anthony Steele knows Mr. Delta very well. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds of that, but James Taylor, the nemesis James Taylor, another big deal in the wrestling world, especially in backyard. He knows Mr. Delta very well. I mean, a lot of guys
Mhm.
tonight you just saw, they know Jack Delta very well. I mean, so do you feel in a lot of ways that's added maybe to the success of the company here these past few months by having somebody like Jack Delta with you guys?
I mean, for sure. When he first started, he brought in some followers. He got me some connections too with people we're bringing in, stuff like that. So all the traveling he does, helps us out too. So I mean, yeah, he's definitely, he's been a big help for us ever since he joined.
Do you ask him a lot for advice on growing the company or doing different things? I mean, is that
Yeah,
something you
we've
do
had a
ask?
lot of talks too. He's actually he's a good guy. He's a good friend. Not like a me good guy, but like an actual, good guy, down to earth. Uh, yeah, we stayed up till like 2 in the morning out there in the ring chilling, talking and shit, and yeah, he's giving me some advice, giving him some advice. It's good.
It's funny you said that as we hear on Sportswire Radio with the good guy CJ Black from our friends over at ROEW, and I want everybody to follow also the good guy CJ Black on Instagram at goodguy_CJ Black. Please follow him and support all the things that he is doing here on behalf of the wrestling scene, especially in the state of Michigan. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the man behind Sportswire Radio, and I'll be here also at about 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time with James Marshall of Wrestling Championship Entertainment. So we'll have a lot to talk about there. So stay tuned. You're getting a doubleheader tonight on Sportswire of wrestling coverage. I speak with a lot of wrestlers, as I referenced, and I'll ask, let's say, well, do you ask for advice? Do you speak to? I'll ask these different wrestlers about maybe what they learn in terms of a veteran wrestler that's had success. Do you find yourself maybe asking Jack Delta about different experiences and different things, maybe to pick his brain and absorb that information a lot? Or talk to me about that.
I mean, it's definitely gone both ways. I don't want to seem like I got a big head, but like I study a lot of shit, man. And like I literally have watched since birth, so I've been paying attention, not just like as a fan, but I would like break it down to like each match, like, oh, he's getting beat down. Oh, now he's starting to come back. Oh, no, no, he's still getting beat down. Oh, the crowd's not reacting enough yet. I'm paying attention to it. So I'm not like, I'm not brain dead to the wrestling business, but like, me and him, we go back and forth, criticizing some things, and he's given me some tips. I think I've given him some tips too. So it goes both ways. It's not just like, he's my mentor type thing. It's
No,
like,
I get that. I get that. 'Cause it's interesting because I've had on a guy, RP Davis, who was a boxer, and he's become a wrestling champion in England. And one of his mentors was a guy you probably heard of, William Regal. And he would ask him questions, and he every time he get a chance, he'd email him. Can you tell me this? What to do? Can you do me that different? But what I get from you actually is because you've been ingrained in a way in this sport, whether it's as a fan or even now as a wrestler, that in a lot of ways that helps you because it's not like this is something where you see it sometimes where wrestlers weren't wrestling fans and they try this and they pick it up because they didn't work out in football or basketball or other things. They can't do whatever they're doing anymore, and they pick up wrestling as a way to supplement that competition. But you actually, maybe what helps you is that you've loved this sport really since you came out of your mother's womb.
yeah, damn good way to put it, but yes.
Well, that's why I've been on the air 4.5 years. That's so I kind of know how to spin these things.
Yeah, I mean, side note, I am really good at football too. But
Well, you're
2003
from Michigan.
offensive MVP right
Well, you're
here.
well, you're from Michigan. You have obviously a good track record, at least college
Yeah,
football and high school. So
man. But what was I getting at earlier? I forget.
basically, the fact that you've basically been a fan of wrestling since birth. So it's not like this is something that you have to all of a sudden like learn overnight.
Right,
In a lot of ways, you have an understanding of it. So maybe you don't have to pick a Jack Delta's brain so much as somebody else because, in a way, you do kind of know what's going on.
right. Yeah, that was one of like the first things we talked about on Messenger when we like linked up. He was like, you guys really seem to know what you're doing, like for the most part, like like me. So it was a nice little compliment. And then the first time he came over, I was like chilling, waiting for him. He comes in and he sees our little, half-ass ring. And I'm like, take a bump for me. Tell me how close it is to a ring. He takes a bump. He's like, it's actually pretty close to a ring. So I was proud of myself that I built the ring without ever being in a ring. So that was nice. And
Well,
then as far as like us being on the same page, doing things the right way, some of the backyarders I watch now, and this is why I'm talking about like I want us to be different. As soon as I see them doing an incorrect collar and elbow tie up and making it look like they're just barely hugging each other, I'm like, I can't watch it. I'm at that point now where like I feel like the angry pro, even though I'm not even a pro. I gotta have it at least be somewhat realistic. Like we're trying to emulate pro wrestling. Do it right.
sometimes you watch
That's just me.
backyard. No, listen. You know what? Listen, and I'm gonna be straight up. I watch a lot of wrestling at this point because we cover a lot of wrestling on Sportswire. So I'm watching, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 matches a week at a minimum. So I mean, this is what I'm doing. I'm watching a lot of stuff, and sometimes you can see in backyard matches when guys can't even run the ropes right. I mean, you kind of know, like, hey, like I'm not a wrestler, but I could tell when somebody's not doing something. I also have a background in news and in politics, so I have like a conceptual idea of things. So when I see things, you can kind of tell. And I think, but what situates you guys, I think, differently as to why I'm excited about the future of the company. And I think why a lot of people, especially like a Jack Delta, have got interested in you guys is because everything you guys are doing out there, I think the effort is there. And I think it feels, like I said again, really almost like a 1980s circa, TV show you saw at Mid-South, NWA, maybe, another territory company. Did you, when you were putting the company back together, before I get to more comments, did you have an influence in mind that you wanted to emulate what the shows would look like?
I mean, well, first of all, that's what I wanted was like what you just did is people to recognize that we're, putting in the work and trying to be different. And as far as like what we wanted to be like, just different. That's all. That's like
Well,
as far as like being different.
that's a good analogy. There was an interview I always quote once, and it was from a singer of the band Queens, right, Jeff Tate, and they asked him, they said, well, how would you label your music, and what would you want to be? And he's like, well, I just want to be different. I don't want to sound like everybody else. And I think that's why you guys have done so well here of note. And I think this show's already gotten like over 100 views already. It's only been up for a few hours. So that tells you that you guys are doing a great job. I want to give a big shout out to another wrestling fan here that shared our show on Facebook. That is John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group. The Sports Authorities Group has close to or over 4,000 members by now. So I thank John for giving us the opportunity to share the show. I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but if you're on Facebook, whoever it might be, you can certainly support the Sports Authorities at the Sports Authorities on Facebook. You can also like our content here on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube at Sportswire Radio, which we're also live here as we speak, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. And again, my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. We are here with the former ROEW champion of the world, and maybe one day returns to being the champion, Mr. Good Guy CJ Black. And the guys just came off a highly successful show here called ROEW Weekend Warfare. Go to ROEW Backyard Wrestling to YouTube and watch it. Now, I have to ask you on a personal level, how are you doing? Because on Instagram, you posted that you had a slight mishap, and I was watching the match, and it did look like you had some pain you were in here, whether it was the leg or whether it was your hand, certainly in the match against your brother. So talk about how you're feeling and talk about just how all that went down and just where we go from here with you, my friend.
Well, unfortunately, we try to be as safe as possible, but accidents do happen, and this was all my fault. It had nothing to do with like a move done wrong. It was just me balancing wrong like an idiot. And I bent my thumb backwards and immediately felt it, as you can see in the video.
Yep.
And I worked the rest of the match, kept my mentality in a good place, and I was like, I gotta finish. I didn't get to do everything that I wanted to do or the way I wanted to do it, but I think the match still turned out pretty good.
It was a great match. I think the fact that you wrestled that match the way it was, and I mean, you wouldn't almost noticed it. I mean, this was a match that was at least like 21, 22 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. It was a really, really good match. I mean, so it seemed to me as if like you did a great job under pressure.
I appreciate that. The main thing we were focusing on was psychology, for sure. Something that I want backyard wrestlers to literally want to get better. That's what I want. Like if I'm watching other people's stuff, and like I said about the collar elbow tie up, like the resources are out there to learn. Go learn just like we did. It's not that hard. It's free. It's on YouTube. Just go get better. That's all.
Listen, I think you should always try to be better at anything you do. There's no
Yeah,
question. I agree
I
with
know I'm
you on
not
that.
perfect. I watch my match and I'll watch it back again and I'll be like, oh man, I could have done that better. Every single time I watch my match, I know it's not perfect. I just want to always get better.
All right. Well, I mean, look, obviously, we can see that you're definitely improving here. So I have to ask you then, I mean, who are some of the wrestlers that you've tried to emulate in terms of, what your approach is and how you're going about who you are?
Okay, so As far as character work, when I first saw MJF, I got super jealous because he's younger than me, and I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted to be if I became a pro wrestler. So I was super pissed, and I was like, oh man.
And you know, it's funny. I actually have to tell you, I actually have through a back channel, actually a relationship with MJF. One of my analysts on Sportswire here on my Friday shows, which we cover regular sports, actually grew up with MJF, and he knew him like from when he was like he was this like now, but he was like a little kid. And MJF, what you see on TV and AEW, that's who he is in real life.
I believe it. He made me believe it anyways. I didn't think any other
Yeah, he's
any other way.
exactly the same. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, what you see on TV is the same person he was from Plainview in Long Island. That's exactly what you're getting. So that's why he's so good, I think, in a lot of ways.
But yeah, there's him as far as like, the character work shit, the gimmick, and then as far as wrestling, I don't know. I grew up when I was a kid, I really liked Jeff Hardy, but obviously I'm no Jeff Hardy. So as I
Your
got
style
older, it
is
was more
not
like
Jeff Hardy. Yeah, you don't have the Jeff Hardy style.
no. I got into more like Bret Hart stuff and Kurt Angle as I got older.
I see
Named
Angle.
people
I definitely see the Kurt Angle in you. I see a little bit of Samoa Joe. Maybe not as like brute like, but I could see like that Samoa Joe psychology a little bit in you. I could see maybe even in a way like a Randy Orton a little bit in terms of kind of like some of the psychology, the mannerisms. I see that. But Bret Hart, I could see a little bit in you also because you were very much technical. You're a technical guy, so I could see the Bret Hart, maybe Mr. Perfect a little bit as well in you.
I was just always a fan because he made everything look so snug and believable, and that's what I want.
Well, they always said, what do they always say about Bret Hart? They said he was the guy that his stuff looked like the most real, but he was actually like the safest guy to work with. So I think in a lot of ways, I would throw another guy out there that's still going, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett, they wouldn't say he was the greatest wrestler, but he was able to kind of do the same thing, make his stuff look good enough that he was able to maintain a career. And I have no doubt that you'll do the same things here. So, I mean, we've spoke a little bit about your situation with the current champion. We spoke about Jack Delta. So, I mean, what is the future of the company? Obviously, we have a show, I would imagine, coming up here within the next month or so, which we're obviously going to build upon here on Sportswire. And I mean, talk about some of the things here we're going to see with the company coming up.
Next show, as far as I know, is going to be our tournament, like it's King of the Ring style. It's going to be called Battle of the Best. I think it's going to be like an 8-man tournament. Backyard wrestling, everybody's got their own lives too, so it's hard to get so many people together, especially
Sure.
from different states at the same time. But yeah, we're bringing in some people. I don't want to give it away
Yeah,
to
don't tell us because
coming.
I'll tell you this much, it'll come back to me because there'll be somebody I'm sure you'll have on that I actually am friends with on Facebook or no. So don't spoil it. I always tell
Definitely not
wrestlers,
spoiling it.
yeah, don't spoil it.
Let's see. As far as like long-term goals though, I mean, we just started in November, so like I said, our subscriber count needs to get up there quick for me. I'm getting hurt, but I would like to get us monetized down the road. I know that's hard with backyard wrestling and their the songs we use, so we'll have to change that up when we get there.
Sure.
But I would like to get us monetized and I don't know, maybe someday change it from backyard wrestling to maybe an indie style type thing. Get a
Well,
promoter's license, maybe. I don't know.
well, I mean, listen, in England, that's a thing. That's a common thing where wrestlers in these towns get the promoter's license. I mean, so would you like to go down that road? Some guys like Anthony Steele, for example, who we had on Friday night, he started as a backyard wrestler. He's still kind of in backyard, and he's in the independents now. I mean, there are wrestlers that have done both. Most notably, obviously, you mentioned the Hardys, the Young Bucks. I mean, there's a number of wrestlers that have started out in backyard wrestling. So to me, the way I see it, I don't think it's a derogatory term because also think about it this way: if you were a musician, right? Where did you practice? You practiced in your home, right? Your house, your basement, your backyard, right? So you have to start somewhere. So wrestlers have to start somewhere too. I mean, so would you like to eventually get, let's say, the opportunity to maybe train at a school or wrestle as an indie guy for a minute or two? I mean, is that
I
something?
mean, that was my plan when I was younger. Like literally, as soon as I got out of high school, I wanted to, but I was a late bloomer, still just a little kid, basically. I was like, I'm not going into the land of giants, I was like, pushing it off, and then I kept pushing it off, and so many different things happened, excuses, blah blah blah, never went. And now I'm about to be 30 soon. I got different priorities I need to worry about.
Yeah, but 30's not like 30's like the new 20 now. I mean, people listen all over. Listen, DDP was famously what 39, I think, when he made the transition. I mean, I've
Right, but
had
think of
guys.
wrestling back then compared to now. Like I can't do 630 splash and like
No, but
over the
listen,
top
I'll
weight.
give you an example. My guest tomorrow night, the Big Cheese Logan, is 42. He started as a pro wrestler at about 36. There's guys I've had. Rick Marcus is like 38 or 39. He started at 30, 31. So my point is, if you were going to be like a football player or a basketball player, yeah, I would say time's up. But in wrestling, you could still go for it. I mean, that was all my point. You could still, go for it here.
I mean, yeah, but see, like also what turns me off is as I got older, I learned how the politics backstage got to kiss ass.
Yeah,
And as REW is our own thing. We could do whatever we want.
right. Yeah, I could appreciate that as somebody who actually worked in the political world. In the actual political world, it's funny when wrestlers talk about politics. I always use my analogies of being involved in politics. So yeah, if you have the opportunity not to be involved in it and you don't want to do it, you can go your own route. Then I would say, create your own brand, create your own vision. I mean, I think so far with what you guys are doing. You guys are doing that, and I want to say hello to somebody here from Manchester in the UK. It's 2 o'clock in the morning there, so I got to give them a lot of credit for staying up here. It's Virgil Kane. Virgil, I think, has been on one of my shows before, and I'm trying to remember where do I know Virgil from. But
That name
Virgil
sounds
says,
familiar.
yeah, you know what? I have a lot of people that pop onto Sportswire, so there's always somebody that comes on and says hello, and I just wanted to say hello to them and thank you for staying up with us here on Sportswire. And I want to thank actually everybody on Facebook because we just crossed the 600 follower milestone on Facebook. I'm at 601 now, but we just crossed the 600. Let's go. That's the point because we want to go up, onward, and upward. And also Virgil wants to say we don't have gorillas here, but my granddad said never look them in the eyes. I think he means gorilla position. I think that's what he means here, being in gorilla position. I think that's the whole point because when you're in
I
obviously
don't
for
know. I don't
wrestling,
get it, but
I think that's the reference. I think that's the reference because famously the promoter will be in gorilla position backstage. So I'm imagining here he's saying don't look the promoter in the eyes because then you have to play politics. I'm just trying to visualize that. So that's here nor there. So I want to ask you a question before I get to a couple of quick questions. And obviously we appreciate the opportunity you've given us here to talk about the company and such and everything else that you're doing here. One more time, please follow you a good guy underscore CJ Black on Instagram, ROEW Backyard Wrestling on YouTube and Instagram as well. And I mean, the first time you wrestled, you did whatever you did. The second time you've been back at it for maybe 7 months, whatever it is, right? Have you felt like this second run you exceeded what maybe you even wanted to do the first time you were in the ring? How is this second
oh, yeah.
experience compared to the first experience?
Absolutely have, because I'll go back and watch my old stuff and literally everything is wrong. And I'm like, what is that hold? That's the wrong side. What am I doing on the right arm? Like, come on, man, get it right. So now that I've, studied more, doing things the right way, it's hard to go back and watch that stuff. And like, there was no direction. We were just out there, me and my brother having matches. That's all it was. And now we actually got different characters, storylines. It's good. I just wish
Does
we
it
had more.
Well, I mean, what's why we're here having you and trying to promote you guys. I mean, does it make you appreciate though what you have now? Because you went through this period where you didn't wrestle at all. I mean, does this make you appreciate that this journey here so far you've gone on?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's been nice because I definitely missed it, and that's why originally came back because all I had left was my last match from 2015, which I wasn't even that happy with. I'm like, I gotta have one more. I know I could do better, which I think I've proved that I definitely can and have done better.
You haven't looked
But
like, by the way, you missed 8 years. I have to say, watching your matches, you haven't looked like you missed that much time in the ring. I have to, I'm saying this to be honest.
I just think what it was is like literally wanting it. I wanted to be better, so I put in the effort to actually pay attention to things and do shit the right way and get better. And back then, I just, I kind of had the mindset like I've seen people now, like, oh, you're just going out there having a good time doing this move. You do this move back and forth, and that's not how wrestling is.
No, there needs to be some type of, as they say in music, call and response. Let me get to some more comments here. Adam Morgan, who also wrestles down in Texas. So Adam Morgan's line is always woo. He just says woo just because he likes saying it. That's who he is. Interesting guy. He's also a podcaster. He does
A
some
lot to add
wrestling.
to the conversation. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, doesn't have much to add really. Virgil Kane was actually talking about monkeys, so I'm gonna just move on from him.
What I thought,
But
man.
yeah, I was trying to like work it up. But speaking of individuals whose last name is also Black, you might have heard of Omen Black, who we referred to at the very beginning. He says, "Well, well, well." So he says, "Well, well,
Well,
well" to
well,
you.
well. 3 wells. Did I get that number right, Dwight?
Yeah, let me count it. 1, 2, 3. It's three. I just want to make sure it's three. Anything you want to say to Omen? You want to say hello to him? You have anything
Change your
you want to
last
say?
name. That's all. There you go.
So, do you have ownership of the name Black?
I mean, it is my real name, so I mean, technically.
Okay, all right. So you actually are Black. Okay, all right. Give you that. Oh, fair enough. So, I guess then Jack Black then doesn't can't sue you then, right? Jack Black
Correct.
can't sue you. Okay, all right. Fair enough. Here, and he also says that he's glad you can count to three.
I appreciate that. I learned that a couple years ago, actually. So.
Oh, you did. So you learned something there. So
In
you did.
good
You
guy
did learn.
school.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's a thing called Good Guy School. I didn't
Yeah.
know that there's.
I graduated
Okay.
top of the class.
Oh, I wouldn't have been surprised any other way here.
Exactly.
Also, John Gonzalez. John Gonzalez is another guy that wants to. This is not actually toward you, but we have a person I referenced named the Brute Force Brad Weiss, who is a ex-college basketball player here in New York, 6'5". He's a big guy. He's kind of mild-mannered, but he's called the Brute Force because when he was a basketball player, he would kind of like clog the middle, and he was almost like for the Michigan fans out there, almost like a Ben Wallace type. He would just kind of clog the middle, and he was great defensively. Offensively, he was a little challenged, but John would like to see this guy, the Brute Force, wrestle in the ring. You can look him up on Instagram. I don't quite think he's a wrestler. I think he should keep his day job as a high school basketball coach and an analyst on Sportswire. So I'm gonna, leave that at that. But Omen,
Did you reference Ben Wallace just for me?
yes, I did actually, because I
I
figured
thought
you were a
so.
Pistons fan. Because I thought that was the glory years of the Pistons from like
Yep.
2002 to maybe 2008. I want to say about 2007, 2008. Those glory years with Rasheed Wallace,
He goes
Tayshaun
like
Prince.
04 to 06 with all those, Tayshaun Prince and Rip
Yeah.
Hamilton and
Yep. Chauncey Billups,
Rasheed
Mr.
joined
Big Shot.
eventually too.
Yep. Yeah. They had, I think, what was it, 5 or 6 consecutive conference finals in a row or something like that.
Something like that. Those were the days,
And,
man.
and I feel like they
Stopped
haven't won a
watching after
playoff
that.
game. I feel like they haven't won. What have they won? One playoff game since? Maybe 2. I mean, it's
I haven't paid attention since then, to be honest with you. I
well.
just football, MMA, and wrestling.
All right. Well, 2 of those. Well, actually, I kind of like UFC. UFC, I'm very, very interesting here. So, I got a couple comments here. Let me get here. John Gonzalez wants to bring up the Malice at the Palace. Obviously, that was ESPN 30 for 30. I
Good
remember
guy
watching it.
supports that. Totally fine.
Yeah, basketball has certainly changed. I have more comments. I do want to get to Omen. I'll go to Omen, but I want to go to this individual here. Do you know a Kyle Bruce by any chance?
I do.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if he
Sure.
wants me to say who he really is, but yeah, I know who he
All
is.
right. Is there a single person in the history? Well, don't say who he is. Is there a single person in the history of internet wrestling who can join a live chat and not try to put themselves over instead of just commenting on what you guys are talking about?
I think that's for everybody else. I think it's just rhetorical.
Okay. 'Cause I don't think it was really necessarily about anything we just said, but okay, all right. Well, we appreciate Kyle for tuning in. If Kyle is who he might be, maybe one day Kyle, I guess, would be on Sportswire. If I think
Maybe.
it might, maybe that might be a good idea, right? Maybe if Kyle wants to reach out, you can catch me on Instagram at the Sports Report 2021 here. But I'm gonna move away from Virgil King because it's kind of like diatribes. I'm going to come to Omen Black, though. Come make me change my name. Last I checked, I called you out. You said nothing. I'll wait for the response. Take the time to plan the funeral for your wrestling career. Now, he's referring to 3 months ago when the IMF called out different companies. You guys were on that list. I'm sure you heard about that comment from Mr. Black and the IMF. And was there anything you wanted to say toward that or Mr. Black now that we're here
I
live?
mean, if it's the good guy talking, just know that maybe I checked you out and you weren't all what you think you are, you know? Maybe you're not up to par with the good guy. We'll just leave it at
So,
that.
are you sure, though? He's 5'11", 385 pounds.
How's the talent?
He's 5'11", 385 pounds, though. He puts
That
people
means
through
nothing.
tables. All right, but he's 5'11", 385, though. I would say, though, he's certainly a giant. He's a
The
big
bigger
man.
they are, the harder they fall. It does not matter.
All right, would you say then you'd like him to come to your building one day?
I'd have to check out one of his matches and see, but I don't know. Maybe.
All right, well, he also wrestled yesterday in an independent wrestlers company called for Levi McDaniel, and he wound up successfully defending his championship there. Put a guy through a table. A guy's name was Shaq. He was literally, I guess not Shaq as an SHAQ, but that's what he did to him yesterday. And he says he's on the Indies now, and very few have made me fall. And Mr. Black is certainly a big man. Kyle says Kyle's going to be on Sportswire Thursday, so I guess this Kyle would be related to somebody I know that I may be referenced on Thursday. So I
Possibly.
guess all right. Well, then I didn't know that. So I guess that you know what you never know at this point. So I guess I am talking to people that are talking through different channels, but that's what you get here. So I want to give you the opportunity before the next show. If you want to say a couple of things here first, I'm going to give you the opportunity to address your brother after you successfully defeated him today. And then, as a side point, anything you might want to say to the man you brutally beat up at the end of the main event or helped brutally beat up in the current champion. So, before we move on to closing thoughts and a few other things, what would you like to say to your brother C Money and to the current champion who you shall not name?
Appreciate that. So, as far as my brother's concerned, I already know I could beat him. I'll do it again. If you want some, come get some. You know what I'm saying? Easy. Easy money. C Money. Pathetic name, by the way. Now, the left-handed freak. Oh, God. Don't make me say his name. I just want my property back. It's that simple. Give me my belt back that I earned and should not have lost, and everything will be fine for you. I promise. You can trust me. I'm a good guy. It's fine. Wouldn't lie to you.
Well, that's to be determined. I mean, that we're going to find out obviously between now and next month's show here for the
You don't believe me,
ROEW.
Tom? You don't think I'm a good guy?
I didn't say you were a good guy or a bad guy. I
I'm a
actually didn't
good
say.
guy.
Okay. All right. Well, I did receive word here from Mr. Delta. If you don't mind, I'd like to read off
Oh,
a direct message from Mr. Delta. Mr. Delta is actually available for a chat. We might actually be able to arrange Mr. Delta, actually. In fact, the way Mr. Delta's schedule works out, I possibly could be speaking to him Thursday evening. So if
wow.
you're around here, I think that individual here might be related to an individual that could want to come on to Sportswire. So I think we actually might be able to do that. So maybe I would say for Mr. Delta's sake, how is 11:30 p.m. Eastern time? So if 11:30 p.m. Eastern time works for you, I could actually talk with Mr. Delta. So if you might be around and if you're an ROEW fan, I think that could be something that you might want to tune in for. So it looks like that individual might know an individual named Mr. Jack Delta. So I'll be pulling double duty, it looks like, on Thursday. So
Another good guy. Great guy.
well, I'm going to find out. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to talk to him.
The best
I'm,
guy.
I'm sure I'll bring you up. Absolutely, for sure. So I want to make sure that we'll do that here. And Omen Black says, my buddy Captain Law works there, right? Yep. Would you like to say anything to about Captain Law? Because Mr. Black knows him very well.
Well, I wouldn't say he works here. I mean, he stopped by, for a cup of coffee and to ruin my plan A. But other than that, you say what you want about him. I don't care.
So
Another dude, by the way, I found out he wears glasses. Like I said, can't trust him. Always let you down.
So I guess it's 0 for 2 with glasses then for you in ROEW.
Not a fan.
So are you trying to pick people that don't have glasses to work here in REW? Because if that's the case, Omen Black doesn't wear glasses. Actually, he doesn't wear them.
Oh. Is he a good guy?
That's for you to decide. That's for you to
Let him
decide. You got
comment.
this.
Let's see. Are
You
you a
got
good guy, or are
you.
you one of these C Money types? Oh, and Jason Storm. Oh,
No, he's. I don't think watching his content, he's much of a C Money type. I think Omen Black's for Omen Black. I think he shares the same last name as you do. That's probably where the similarities end. But I would say that you and Mr. Black might have some similarities, but that's to be determined. I mean, that's up for you guys to determine. But I would say again, maybe people would want to see him travel to Michigan. I mean, Iowa to Michigan's what? Is that a 7-hour drive? Maybe Iowa to Michigan.
not sure.
All right.
That's
Okay.
for him to find out.
All right. Well, I guess then would there be an open invitation for him if he wanted to drive to Michigan?
I mean, if I'm being realistic, like I check out people's, matches to see if they're, somewhat safe, know what they're doing before we invite them. And if that was the case, then yes, he'd be invited.
All right, so you know what? Listen, that's a fair statement. I think certainly, I'm sure. Stay tuned. You never know what the future might be, so we'll have to let's see what happens there. But I know you're a busy man here, and I want to get to closing thoughts. So I want to ask you one more question here before we sign off. And I thank you here for the opportunity to speak with you, to speak about your career and also all things related to ROEW. So I ask this question always to every wrestler that comes on here that hasn't seen you or maybe even ROEW. So for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, tell our audience or anybody else that hasn't heard of you until now why they should follow you, and also most importantly watch what the future of ROEW has to offer.
Man, we put in the work. We try to make things, spot on as far as what you see on TV, or, you go to your favorite indie shows, and that's what we're trying to do. As far as me, I mean, you can just watch and tell, like, I don't want to be like, too cocky with the big head, but like, you can tell that I possibly, stick out as far as, being someone that looks like they know what they're doing. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, you know what? I mean, you can go out and follow all things related to ROEW and find out for yourself on YouTube and Instagram at ROEW Backyard Wrestling. Good guy underscore CJ Black on Instagram as well, and keep up to date with the company. And we might be hearing from Mr. Jack Delta, a guy you think is a good guy here, and maybe some will think as well he's a good guy, Thursday night here on Sportswire Radio. So I'm going to give you the floor then, give you some closing thoughts, anything else you want to plug, share, say, and I want to give you the opportunity to say anything else, and floor is yours, my friend.
All right, so you watched Weekend Warfare. What do you think was the match of the night? Don't be afraid to hurt my feelings. Honest opinion.
I mean, if I was being objective, I think that the opening match was the best match. I mean, I'm just, I wouldn't say it just because you're here, because I felt in watching the match. No, I thought certainly Delta and the champion certainly added things. The challenge match was okay. It was okay, but I do think the psychology and kind of the back and forth with the false finishes, the referee a couple of times being out, the added kind of hype to the storyline of you and your brother. I think that was a wise choice to have an opening. The most important match sometimes is actually the opening match, because that's the match that people remember. It's either the first match or the last match that people remember. So I would have to say, objectively speaking, what you guys were able to put on, even the finish itself. I mean, basically you winning on a holding of the tights there on a 1,
I
2,
did
3,
what?
and
That's nuts.
well, that's what the commentator was saying. That's what the
Commentator
commentator
hates me. He's so biased. I can't stand him.
well, that's what the commentator said. I'm only transcribing what I watched, and you kind of did like almost like a this kind of sign to your brother, almost kind of like a gesture there toward the end of the match. But yeah, I would have to say that the opening match, I think, listen, and the other two matches were very good as well. I want to take nothing away from everybody else out there, but I would have to say the opening match was probably the most enjoyable of the three matches I saw.
I ain't mad at you. Excellent choice.
Well,
You know who would be mad at that though? Some freak that wears glasses. Ooh, he's gonna be mad.
Well, I'll tell you what. We can certainly, decide for yourself what you think is the best match by again going over to the YouTube page at ROEW Backyard Wrestling and following Mr. CJ Black, the good guy himself. My friend, congratulations on the big victory tonight. I'm looking forward to watching next month's show. I'm looking forward to seeing what some of the other talent here in the company have to say, especially Mr. Delta Thursday night here on all Sportswire radio platforms, on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube at Sportswire Radio, also sportnarium.com/player, and Twitter at Thomas Price 2017. And I thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to watching you in the ring much more ahead in the future.
Damn right, it's been real, brother. Perspective creates a hero. I'm the good guy.
Well, we'll certainly see, as Dave Mustaine of Megadeth famously had an album titled The World Needs a Hero. I don't know if that'll be the case, but I know one thing. You did hear tonight, the good guy, CJ Black from ROEW, and ROEW just came off a highly successful Weekend Warfare show, which just debuted about 6 hours ago. Again, one more time, go to YouTube at ROEW Backyard Wrestling and watch the show. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you're on Sportswire Radio, you're going to go back to your regularly scheduled programming on sportnarium.com/player. In about an hour or so, you'll be back live with myself on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube with James Marshall, the Wrestling Championship Entertainment Interstate Openweight Champion. So we'll be looking forward to hearing what the champion has to say a week before his match at Vindication 2 against Tyler Ark of Vector. So stay tuned for that here in about an hour or so. And thank everybody for tuning in on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.